Well, hey there. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm Micah. I'm the worship leader and small groups director here at First Church. And again, we're so glad you've joined us for worship today. And today is a special day. It's Father's Day. I want to say Happy Father's Day to all of you fathers out there. Happy Father's Day to my dad. And actually, if you would, maybe something fun today, if you're comfortable sharing in the comments section, tag your dad. Say Happy Father's Day, Dad, and then tag his name. If he's in heaven, or if he doesn't have a Facebook account, which is probably most of our dads, that's okay. Go on ahead and put his name in the comments too. Let's celebrate our dads, and I don't want to limit that either. I don't want to limit that just to biological dads or the men who just raised us. I want to include our spiritual coaches, the men who have led us spiritually. So if you got a few in there, that's okay. Go on ahead. Share those comments. Thanks for sharing. We want to pray for our dads today too. So if you see one of those dads in there, just pray for them. Just pick one and pray. So as we get going here, we're taking a little bit of a break from our message series, and since it's Father's Day, we chose a text anyway that hopefully resonates with us dads, and well, all of us. And in honor of dads, I want to call this message Home Improvement. Okay, are you ready? Okay, I'm chuckling because I'm remembering that old TV show, Home Improvement, with Tim the Toolman Taylor. I think we've got an image we'll throw up here. Do you remember it? Do you remember watching this half hour of comedy, slapstick comedy, and little moral of the story episodes? It's a good show. I don't want to complain about it. It was, Tim, the dad there, always found a way to get himself hurt or in some sort of predicament, and oftentimes taking advice from the neighbor whose face we never saw. What I really like about that show is it reminds me of the modern day man. And what it really reminds me of is that many dads today, men who choose to raise their children, well, they're in it for so much more than what a lot of other generations have done. And nothing against those generations, but instead of just bringing home the bacon and saying, well, if you got emotional problems, go tell your mom, kind of thing, the stereotypical, bad dad kind of thing, our modern day dads really have raised the bar for what it means to be a dad. It's one of the areas we've seen a lot of growth and improvement in an era where dads are failing and not stepping up. But the dads who are, they're doing so in a great way, and this show kind of captured that. I myself have become a homeowner not too long ago, a few years ago anyway, and I've become my own kind of Tim Taylor, if you will. No, I'm not finding myself in the emergency room, although there was one time with a nail in a foot, and anyway, we're not going to go there. I did get my tetanus shot, but I've discovered something about myself when it comes to home improvement. Literal home improvement is I tend to put things off, and the other side of it is I tend to go to YouTube a lot. And I don't know what that's about. Maybe you do something similar. If there's a problem in the house and it's not burning down, without too many suggestions from my wife, I go on ahead and try and fix it. But, after 3 trips to Menards, excessive money, I always spend more than I need to. I'll step back and like Tim the Toolman Taylor, if you ever watch the show, I'll grunt. I'll give it a little, oh. Yeah? Know what I'm talking about? Okay. I've entered the full-on dad mode of my life, and that's okay. I've accepted it. I'm working on it. Home improvement is not just maintenance, really. It's about making your place even better, more welcoming, more open, more comfortable. And it's not too dissimilar from our spiritual home improvement. Now go with me on this. It's a never-ending task. Kind of seems to keep going. If you leave it alone too long, it it deteriorates. And honestly, everyone is going to judge you by the state of your home. Well, maybe not everybody, but everybody's got an opinion about it anyway, whether they've had anything to do with it or not. I find that interesting. And it's true both for our spirituality and for our own homes. And the big problems that we encounter, or at least I encounter, and I hope one of these at least resonates with you, is that too often when it comes to our spiritual home improvement, we put off problems and we're only going to YouTube for the fix. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to use YouTube as kind of the spacious analogy of blanket cliche advice. So let's start with this first problem here, putting it off. It's something I've wrestled with a lot myself, and when it comes to spirituality anyway, I think we can learn a lot from our text today. It's a pointed text, and Timothy, the apostle, not Tim the Toolman Taylor, don't get confused there, he's dealing with this same dilemma we have today. Basically, the message of Christ is getting watered down. Less and less people are believing, and bad teaching is creeping into the church in Ephesus yet again. If you remember back in May, we went through a message series on the first letter written from Paul to Timothy, this mentor-mentee relationship, almost like a father-son relationship. People are taking the wrong things from different religions and trying to force them into the gospel, and they just don't mix. It's not healthy for the church. And yet, here we go. We're at the end of the second letter, and Paul is warning Timothy that this is a never-ending battle. Listen to what it says again in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 3. The time is coming when people won't listen to good teaching. Instead, they will look for teachers who will please them by telling them only what they are itching to hear. And I just want to pause there for a second because it feels an awful lot like Paul is writing to 2020 America and not just first century Ephesus. In my experience, when I only listen to the things that agree with what I believe, or when I only listen to things that stroke my ego or things that I like to hear, then I get stuck in a rut, honestly. I become blissfully arrogant, blissfully ignorant to all of the problems around me. It's not good. In essence, what I'm saying is oftentimes when we only listen to those good things, we quit trying to really improve, and we do it in this way. We quit learning. Timothy was known for his timidity. Say that 10 times fast. And maybe you're a little timid, like me. I would say I'm a little timid in some instances. In that case, we need a little encouragement and little sage advice. I want to stick with our home improvement analogy here. The first spring I was in my house, now maybe I wasn't putting this issue off, but I wasn't seeking anybody's advice. I just thought, hey, I'm going to be a good home improvement person, and I just kind of got stuck in my own rut, like I was talking about, but just actually with the house. And so I had my mind set on turning on my sprinklers, okay? Now, mind you, this wasn't just spring. This was early spring, okay? So like way back at the beginning of March. Now, some of you may be laughing at that. Some of you may be not sure what I mean by that, especially you teenagers who haven't really gotten to be around home improvement or maintenance. When you run your sprinklers in March, you're going to have to mow more often. And I discovered this, it still snows in March, a lot in Nebraska. And in that case, I would have risked ruining the whole system and causing major problems, major repairs for our house. Fortunately, I had a couple of people that reminded me, hey, Micah, it's still going to snow. You probably need to wait till May and then save yourself a mowing. And anyway, we get so stuck in the way things should be and the way we want to do them that we lose out. We put off having the conversations we need to have. And that's a big problem. It's a big problem with our spirituality. And what Paul is saying to Timothy is that it's nothing that he hasn't heard before. It's something to the effect of, you can do this, you know what you're doing, have a little patience here, but really go after it here, It's just a guiding hand, just like when I call my dad for help on my house, or my father-in-law, or maybe ask another man in my life, or woman. My sister actually has some really good advice on flooring. We'll talk to somebody else who knows what they're talking about, can relate to me, and it's really cool. Paul's words for Timothy are this: as for you, always be sober-minded, endure suffering, do the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry. And this is directly related to us in our spiritual home improvement. And so my first invitation to you is this: let's quit putting it off. And what we're really avoiding putting off are those hard conversations We're putting off going to small group. We're putting off checking in with somebody spiritually. We're putting off praying with our families, at least more than we should. And leads us right into that next problem. Let's not just go to the places that stroke our ego for our spirituality. Let's quit going to YouTube for the quick fix. And let's really talk to somebody who can give us real spiritual encouragement. You know, when it's my dad, he knows the unique kind of encouragement that I need. He knows just how to push me, just as Christ knew how to push his disciples, just as Paul knows how he's supposed to be pushing Timothy. This is what he says. This is the encouragement. This is the push. Feel it here. 2 Timothy 4:8. Henceforth, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, and every time you see righteous, put good in there. The good judge will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. Paul's sharing out of his own testimony, and it's an amazing thing. Now, Paul, I'm going to use this as a great example here because Paul could do just what a lot of people do, overly spiritual, but don't really get it kind of people do. You know who I'm talking about. Paul could have just mimicked the words of Christ and treated it as good enough and walked away. Here's what I mean. Jesus gave us almost this exact same teaching in Matthew 6:20-21. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. It's a good verse. It's a good teaching. But Paul isn't just mimicking it. Paul isn't just, hey, go do it. Kind of like we want to treat our spirituality as just blanket statements of, oh yeah, it's all good, it's all fine. And he's being a good father, a good mentor to Timothy. And he understands that we need to get our application and our focus on the right things, using the love and meaning of Christ, not just his words. And I hope you understand that too today, that it's not just his words, but it's its full meaning and full understanding that will transform the world. Why do you think we get focused on the wrong things? Why do you think we get focused or sidetracked and work on the wrong projects or just get caught up in this cliche advice? I'm serious. Do you know why? I speculate. When it comes to home improvement in my house, I blame a lot of it on HDTV. You know, a lot of the repairs that needed to happen around my house or fix-its went away when we quit watching HDTV. But for soul improvement, I blame it on the obsession that each and every one of us has with what the other has. Hear me out. It starts when we're children. And my children, he has more ice cream than me. Get over it. At least you have ice cream. That's what I want to say. And my heart breaks for this, but tougher situations come up. For teens, for instance, and this happened to me, they get to start because of who their parents are. For young adults, it's, wow, he's friends and drinking buddies with everybody, so of course he's going to get the promotion over me. This is what we blame things on. It happens in parents, older adults, every walk of life. It doesn't matter because it's petty and prideful. It's putting our attention on the other instead of on Christ and our own home improvement. Jealousy hasn't ever helped. But again, as we look to the words of Jesus and we look to the words of Paul, I want to encourage you to build up your treasures in the places that they belong, not just here on earth, but the things that actually make a difference. I've been reading more lately, and I've discovered an author I really like. His name is Jordan Peterson, and he uses biblical examples to back this up. But basically, the conclusion I'm coming to today is that we need to start at home. We need to clean up our own mess. As Jordan Peterson, author, teacher, and psychologist would say, is set your own house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Before we go and question the motives of anyone else, whether they've earned it, we need to ask ourselves, have I done everything I possibly could have done? Is my house in perfect order, or have I been putting it off, or only just using cliches to fix my problems, especially spiritually? Let's remember the work we're called to do. Again, Paul is calling us to do the work of an evangelist, carry out your ministry fully. When we do the work of an evangelist, I'm not talking about these guys, the televangelists, that weird, again, they're all cliche. I'm talking about really sharing a word of encouragement and really listening to one another. Because when we're really sharing the love of Jesus, we're going to break the peace. Jesus said in his own words, Matthew 10:34, "Don't think that I came to bring peace to the earth. I came to bring trouble." I would insert that trouble is trouble for the ways that life is going right now, which is what we need. The problems of the world need to see the trouble of Christ, that Christ will end those problems. And those problems don't want to end. They want to persist, no matter what they are in your life. And maybe for most of us, if we feel guilty, if we have that gut check of frustration, like whenever you're making a repair on your house. I mean, you get mad when the water heater goes out, but you don't take it out on anybody. At least you shouldn't. You might take the old one out and beat it, but the reality is it's a thing. It's broken. Fix it. That anger is a gut check to say something needs to be done. That frustration is the reality that something isn't right. And I propose the solution isn't just getting mad, isn't just taking it out back and beating it, but actually getting to work. If you read this whole section of Matthew, not only does Jesus say, "I came to bring trouble and not peace," but we hear his famous words, "If you try to save your life, you will lose it. But if you give it up for me, you will surely find it." The paradox of this statement isn't lost on me. If we really want to see home improvement, we've got to get our house in order, not for our own comfort, but so that we can be more hospitable. I'll leave you with this. This has had a profound impact on my life. It's the reason why I'm here. A little over 10 years ago, it was around January, I found myself drunk. And no, not because I was at a friend's house partying or anything like that. Not because it was even New Year's Day or Eve or whatever. It was 11 a.m. And yet another girl had just broken up with me. Dumped me, in fact. And I knew I could have called a church friend. I knew I could have called my parents, and I'm ashamed that I didn't. Because what I did was I chose to plant myself face first into my depressive state. In those days, I was a jerk. Everything made me mad, and I'd call people out for doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. Moral things, they shouldn't have been doing them, but then I was two-faced enough to go off and do something else that I knew I shouldn't have been doing either. Hypocritical. I put all of my hope into a sensual relationship, and when it failed on that lowest of low days, I kind of realized it was time to go home. I sobered up. I believe now, looking back, it was the Spirit's leading. And I know what you're thinking, wow, that's not that profound. That's not, I didn't hear any voices or anything like that, but I went home, took a nap, and that evening I found myself having dinner with a friend. I don't even know I don't know what this friend even said to me that night, but this is what's most important. They did the work of an evangelist, is what Paul would have articulated it as. They said, "I hear you. I'm sorry." They listened. Then they encouraged me to do something. They challenged me, and it made me a little mad that maybe I needed to pray. That was it. Not that profound. Not that, that wasn't the most amazing thing. They didn't give me a sermon. They didn't say, go listen to this or read that. They just said, maybe you need to pray. Maybe you need to go to Jesus. This person didn't even really go to church, and yet they knew that faith is what was going to make the difference in my life. You know that faith is going to make the difference in your life. And you know what that led? That created room in my heart to let the Holy Spirit in when I prayed that night as my head was on the pillow, laying in a bed of tears, still hungover. God, I give up. Can't do this on my own. Help me. Help me. I quit dating. I quit drinking. I quit doing a lot of dumb stuff that night. But I want you to look past the behavior modification. It wasn't just the bad things I was doing. My heart actually changed. And I rediscovered the joy that life really has to offer. I rediscovered my love of music. And not just my love of music, my love of leading others in worshipful music. None of that would have been possible without this person breaking the peace, breaking the status quo, breaking the trajectory that my life was on. A lot of friends and a lot of family poured into me and encouraged me. And it wasn't just that one conversation, it was several conversations. But Jesus did an amazing work. And about 6-7 months later, again, this was 10 years ago, I met the love of my life, Trish. None of this would have been possible without somebody actually caring enough for my soul to improve. Sometimes we need to hear the voice of reason to experience real soul improvement. We have to be willing, constantly willing, to change and confident enough that the Spirit will allow us to change. And once more, for most of us that are listening, for most of us that are a part of this, we need to be better at being the voice of reason, being the voice of soul improvement. And so my invitation to you is this: let's open our hearts first and quit putting off the improvements that we need to make. Let's renovate what needs. Let's pour it out. It's demo day, okay? Let's just do it. Lay it down at the foot of Jesus. Let's put out whatever is holding us back, and let's turn to our fathers, our wisest friends, and our mothers. Let's turn to our spiritual coaches and experience real home improvement, not only in us, but in our brothers and our sisters, in our family, in our community. And let's see what kind of solution that really does. It begins at home. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you today for all of the fathers that have influenced us, that have shown us what is good. But Jesus, we also thank you for their flaws, because it is in their flaws, it is in their errors that we recognize that they are not perfect, and that our hope does not belong in them alone, but it belongs in you, our Father in heaven. That your guidance, your soft hand, your presence is what we need. It's what we yearn for, and that we should not be ashamed that when we face problems or when we're mad and something's not right, that we shouldn't be ashamed that you are there, that you are present, and you are able. Once more, Jesus, I pray that you will come into my heart and all the hearts that are listening today. I pray that you would also do a good work in each and every one of our hearts, and let us be open to sharing your grace and your mercy with one another. Let us be open to not only receiving your love, but to sharing it in a new way. Jesus, give us that home improvement we desire. Give us your love. The love that only you can give. We pray all of these things in your holy and precious name. Amen.